Good evening, everyone. I call this May 22nd, 2019 meeting of the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority to order. Councilor Sanchez is excused and Councilor Davis will be his alternate. President O'Malley is excused and Commissioner Quesada will participate by telephone. All other members are present. Is the commissioner on the line? Okay, great. Next, we will have the moment of silence led by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilor Jones.
Please join us in a moment of silence. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. Next item is item 3, approval of the minutes. I make a motion to approve the April 17th, 2019 minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Item 4, proclamations and awards. We have none this evening, so we will move on to item 5, public comment. Ms. Carrion, how many people do we have signed up to speak?
We have one.
One person this evening? Okay, that person will have 3 minutes to... I was like, did I say 10 minutes? No, 3 minutes to speak.
All right, Elaine Hubbard.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Lose for my next, oh, I want this, not for this one.
Okay.
Good evening. My comments and suggestions try to address items on today's agenda, some of which are wrapped over from last month. I submitted comments to the chair of last month since I was out of town, but since there's no process online to do that, I have no idea what happens to those things that get submitted. So my first suggestion is to have a process to do that. Even though the annual operating plan, item 10B, is prepared for the Fish and Wildlife Service, and it deals with river flows for managing the fish, it's also used to set targets. They're annual targets for groundwater use. My suggestion is that you need longer-term targets for groundwater use, not just annual targets. They should be in the groundwater management plan, which under the FY18 objective was supposed to be done by now, as well as in the FY19 objectives, but maybe it'll be done by the end of the year. This becomes important because a lot of senior staff are going to be retiring, so you want to make sure that these plans are in place already. Since it turns out that choosing these aquifer levels is a bit difficult because you want to choose, evidently, representative wells on both sides. Why not just choose all wells? Set objectives and targets for each one of those wells so that then you can compile them and show that there's been progress according to the plan. It's nearly impossible to utilize the iterative adaptive management approach, which is policy A, if you don't have such objectives. So you need quantitative management objectives and desired conditions. The board could play a role in this as well. The board receives a financial report on a quarterly basis, but not a monthly water report showing how much groundwater, surface water, and other sources of water has been used. Why not? Another suggestion. The financial plan, which is item 7B, in item 7B, reduces anticipated borrowing in the future. Is that good news? The financial plan in the past, every time for the last 3 cycles, has had to be updated by borrowing an additional amount of $39 million over that time period. So the debt is still really high. Why not look at trying to bring it down by perhaps putting more of the cash, maybe 60% instead of 50%, toward CIP expenditures, or raise the $37 million that is the basic rate to use to a higher amount so that more cash is being used rather than the debt. And finally, the utility management, sorry. All right, I'm up, I think, next.
Thank you. Next item is 6, announcements and communication. Next meeting is scheduled for June 19th, 2019 at 5 p.m. in the Vincent E. Grego Chambers. There is a vacancy on the Technical Customer Advisory Committee. If a board members have any nominations, please direct them to the online application at the Water Authority's website at www.abcwua.org. Item 7, introductions. We have R1910, an amendment to the approval of the operating budget of the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019. Mr. Stan Allered.
Madam Vice Chair and members of the board, what we have before you is a budget amendment for FY 19. It basically takes a half of $500,000 for risk to help pay for some extra workers' comp claims and other claims that have come up. There's sufficient revenue and working capital balance to offset this appropriation. I stand for any questions.
Any questions? No questions? Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda. There are several items. Do I read each of them off, Mr. Sanchez, or? No? Okay. So we have the consent agenda. If there's any motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
There's a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are now on item 9, approvals. O19-2. And do we want to do these together, or should we do them separately?
Madam Chair, I believe item B and C would be done together.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right.
And I believe there's one person signed up for public comment under item A.
Okay, thank you.
This is where I need the.
Well, while you're preparing there, I'll go ahead and read item A first, so I'll give you a second. Amending the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority Water and Sewer Rate Ordinance to update the utility financial policy to replace the water supply charge with the water resource charge, establish a water assistance fund, and update terms, update the utility expansion charge, septic tank and chemical toilet charge by 3.1% based on the engineering news report indexes, and update Appendix C, post-issuance compliance policy.
I can talk. What I was going to show you is in the performance plan from FY19. So the question when updating the water resource charge and the utility expansion charge is whether the charges actually cover the costs, making growth pay for itself. As you can see from the performance plan every year, right now, the utility does not. You can see the red line at the bottom. This comes from the FY19 plan. Shows the utilities replacement rate of assets compared to other utilities, and this is a comparison that the utility does itself. This is from them. So again, the question is, and I can go through a lot of this, but whether or not the costs actually are going to cover the costs. The charge is going to cover the costs. Right now, it looks like that it's not. And then with the utility expansion charge, the TCAC was told that currently the charges are $288 below what should be charged for water service and $788 per connection for sewer service. And so the request is to up them by $100, but that doesn't even bring them into line with what should be charged. They hadn't been looked at since 2007 rather than having them annually updated. So I think there's still more work to be done. So my suggestion is, rather than passing the suggested ordinance tonight, is to relook at those charges for both the water service charge and the expansion charge. I have more information in my comments, and I will be submitting them, although I have no idea what happens to them once I submit them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Allred.
Madam Vice Chair and members of the board, real quick presentation just on the rate ordinance for FY20. This ordinance, we conducted our biannual or every 2-year cost of service rate principles with Stantec, our rate consultant. We do that every 2 years. Along with that, we evaluated our utility expansion charges, and we looked at the water supply charge to create, based on what we put in the ordinance last year, is the water resources charge based on Water 2120 on the infrastructure projects that was built into that project. We made changes to the water assistance fund as well, and we updated the UECs as required by the rate ordinance by the ENR index by 3.1%. So a 3/4 inch water is a $100 increase, $75 for sewer. Again, this didn't really bring us back in line with some of the numbers Ms. Hebert talked about. However, it does get us closer to that number, and we believe for now, as we keep updating the UECs by the ENR index, that we should be back in line where we should be at without just jumping the gun a little bit and going full in on this cycle. Again, we will reevaluate this on our every 2-year cycle, along with our cost of service and the water resources charge. The Water Assistance Fund, right now it's funded by donations from our ratepayers, and it's also funded by donations from the Water Authority staff. We've added an appropriation this year of $150,000 to the operating budget to help fund this program. This is a one-time assistance to help customers pay their water bills. It will include assistance to renters occupying a single-family dwelling. It also helps, and we've done it already, help customers get current on their bills so they can qualify for the low-income credit. And even some of our customers that are on the low-income credit, will look like they might fall off the low-income credit because they've got behind based on maybe a turn-off fee or something like that. They've gotten assistance from us one time to get back current and stay on the low-income credit program to help them pay their water bills. And it also helps customers in times of crisis, and it reduces our staff's time for doing unnecessary turn-offs. Real quick, the summary of the water resource charge. So again, this was taking the water supply charge and creating a new water resource charge that's based off of the projects in Water 2120. What we did is we looked at all the projects in Water 2120, and along with RBC Capital Markets, we developed a 45-year finance plan. We plugged the projects for Water 2120 into that plan and determined what those costs would be in the next 45 years for Water 2120. Some of the assumptions we made was that growth pays for growth, and that as we enter development agreements, as people connect to the system, it would pay for these projects. So this is applicable to new customers outside the authority's existing service area. The intent with this is that existing customers would not pay for growth. It was a large increase, so we looked at phasing this in over an 8-year period, which we have done. It's in the ordinance to be phased in over 8 years. And every 2 years, along with the cost of service, we'll reevaluate this and make sure that the charge is applicable and correct. And again, there's no net expense to utility customers for growth. So real quick chart on the phase-in. For a 3/4 inch meter, it'll be about $300 increase from what it is now, and it's going to go upwards to $4,000. But we did that over a 2-year or an 8-year time span to take some pressure off of the development community. and I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? No? Okay, well, with that, thank you. I think you're up on the next items as well. So I make a motion for approval of 019-2.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are now on R19-8 and R19-9, appropriating funds for operating the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020. And R19-9 is appropriating funds for the capital implementation of the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020.
Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, this is for both the operating and the CIP budget. This year's budget for FY20 does not include a rate revenue increase. There is no new FTEs in this budget. Expenses grew at approximately 2% from last year. Again, we assumed nominal growth in our service area for revenue. We also assumed the consumption level at 125 gallons per person per day. Capital spending increased by $3 million, and that was from a cash transfer from operating. So every year mandated by this board, we increase capital spending for our basic program by $3 million, and we have done that with cash and not with debt borrowing. So how much we are been increasing capital by has been directly only done with cash. The rate reserve is fully funded at $9 million. That is set aside in case there's fluctuations based on consumption or what, and it has drivers on our revenue. So if revenue unexpectedly declines, we have this reserve to draw off of without having to go out and do an emergency rate increase. And our fund balance at a minimum is 1/12 of our operating expenditures as mandated by the ordinance. So real quick, this revenue is about $231 million for next year. We're going to use about $4.7 million of working capital balance to pay for some of the revenue. We have a pretty substantial working capital balance right now, so we're going to use that and to offset the need for a rate increase. $127 million for water, $92 million for wastewater, and miscellaneous expenses, revenue about $6.2 million. And those are things like selling compost and other things that we may generate. Debt service, $79 million in expenses next year. This is our peak year, so 2020 will be our high debt service year, and then it will begin dropping off after that. Wage and benefits is about $59 million. Operating expenses, $57 million. The transfer of other funds of $31 million, which is primarily transferred to capital to pay for CIP. Risk is 2.7, and it stayed fairly flat over the last 3 years, and workers' comp at about $700,000. This is a quick graphic about where we were last year in our budget versus where we are next year for next year's budget. You can see on most all operating levels, it's fairly flat. The decrease in finance is due to us moving a group out of finance into the field side. So you'll see the increase on the field side. If we didn't do that, it would have both been fairly flat as well. The only increase really is for transfers, and that was to pay for debt service, and the increase to transfer to pay for capital. We have really maintained our operating expenditures through a lot of efficiencies over the last several years. So our workforce is working a lot smarter and more efficient, and in doing so, we've really controlled our operating expenditures over the last several years. Our FY20 capital improvement plan includes $68.5 million of appropriations. Some of those appropriations moved over from FY19 to FY20 on projects we have not yet finished. We have $58 million appropriated for the basic rehab program. And then just real quickly, we have some of the initiatives of that $58 million, $23 million for the Southside Water Reclamation Plant, about $10 million for sanitary sewer pipeline renewal, $2.6 million for the Mexico Legislative Capital Outlay Awards projects that we got from the state legislature in the last session, $4.4 million to continue to rehab our fleet and our vehicles, And as mandated by the rate ordinance, $2 million for our AMI projects and $1 million for steel line replacement. And one of the projects we just talked about was Southside. So this is the Southside Water Reclamation Plant. We're covering the clarifiers. 2 of them have been covered. The rest will be covered in this next fiscal year. And so that's where some of the money will be spent. And then CIP spending based on the decade plan, you can see the yellow line is our cash transfers. So we are increasing our cash transfer to pay for capital. And you can see that our capital spendings is increased at the same level. In the FY19 budget, 57% of the funds paid out of capital are transferred from cash from the operating budget, and that has been increasing by $3 million a year. So I would say probably within next year or the year after, we'll be well above 60% of our capital expenditures funded by cash. And that has been policy set by this board that we have followed over the last 5 or 6 years. And I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? No questions? So with that, I just want to say you guys just do an outstanding job year after year. You guys should really be commended for the work you do. And then if you don't mind, Stan, just real quickly, talk about some of the awards that you've received this year.
I'll let Mark do that.
Madam Chair, over the last couple of years, we've had numerous awards. One was our Surface Water Quality Award. We received a Platinum Award for Excellence in Management. We received a Utility of the Future Award. I could go on, but we've had about a half a dozen national level peer-reviewed type awards for policies, for management, et cetera. But thank you.
Well, thank you again. Thank you for the work you do and what you've done with reuse. I think you guys are going to be an example for the rest of the country moving forward. So thank you. I move approval of R19-8. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. I move approval of R19-9. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are now on other business.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Commissioner.
Thank you, and I apologize. I hope it's okay if I go back and ask one question. First of all, I want to say thank you to the staff for the expansion of the Water Assistance Fund. I think for those of us who represent low-income families, that is a really significant change that now families that rent their homes are eligible. I think that's a big deal. Where can people go for information about this? Do you have a page on the website or a pamphlet or something that we can share?
Commissioner Stebbins and Madam Vice Chair, it is on our website. Is also where help with the storehouse, and they have all that information there as well as the Rio Grande Food Project. So any customer service rep that you call on 842 Water can assist you in that. It is on our website, and those 2 other agencies are actively looking for customers that come in for help. In those agencies, they offer advice and assistance to pay for those as well. And we will do a flyer, 1 or 2 in our bills in the future as well.
That'd be great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So we are on OB 1910 Consumer Confidence Report, Mr. Mark Kelly. And I notice we don't have Catherine Uhas doing the water report. Thank God, because we've been having so much water.
Madam Chair and members of the board, tonight I'm going to talk about our Consumer Confidence Report. This is our annual report about water quality that goes out to every customer. Many customers have received them already in the mail, and they should be all sent out by the end of this week. And why we have a water quality report or our consumer confidence report is it's required by the Safe Drinking Water Act. It lets the public know what we have detected in the water. And it also compares things that have been detected with the standards set in the Safe Drinking Water Act. In the last customer opinion survey in 2018, we asked a question about readership of our water quality report, and about 53% of those surveyed said they never or rarely read our water quality report. So this year, if you notice, all the board members have copies of the report as well as copies of last year's report. It looks much different. We've totally revamped it. Another thing that came out of our opinion survey was between 2016 and 2018, our satisfaction in the quality of the drinking water went down by about 8%. And I think that one of the reasons that that happened may be that folks don't actually know the quality of their drinking water. So we're trying to improve the report to educate the customers. To help improve the report, we had customer conversations last October and November. We had 4 of them throughout the service area. And this is a time where we talked about water quality with the customers, as well as got their opinions on the report and sought out their feedback in ways that we can make the report better. One of the things that came across was to have the report stand out in their mailbox. And a lot of folks said that because of the kind of newspaper lookingness of the old report, they were less likely to read it because it kind of looked like junk mail that they get all the time. So this new report looks a lot sleeker, a lot better, more like a brochure that you'd like to pick up somewhere. Our customers also told us about using more infographics. They wanted to be able to skim the report to be able to get the main messages quickly. And we did that here with our sources of drinking water and our schematic for the San Juan Trauma Drinking Water Plant. Our customers also told us that less is more. They felt overwhelmed by the amount of information, and they found that it was kind of hard to pick out the main points from the report. And they wanted to be able to read it and know that their water is safe easily. So we've kind of pared down the total square inches of the report. And customers also wanted to brag a little, like you mentioned, with all the awards that the Water Authority has got. And we noted in our customer conversations about some of these awards, and nobody knew anything about any of them. And that was one thing that folks said that they would like to see. So in the new water quality report, they're highlighted in there. And they also wanted to be able to get involved, to tell, see what they can do to help. So we've included ways that they can help with source water protection in the report, and also told them about various board meetings and whatnot. The Consumer Confidence Report has required information like the contact information for the system, sources of water. We have to include definitions of all the terms that we use in there. We have to talk about the detected contaminants. We have to talk about compliance with various other drinking water regulations like the Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rule number 4, or UCMR 4. And we also provide some educational information. In the definitions section, the main ones to take away are the MCL, the maximum contaminant level. And those are the levels that EPA has set that above which they do not consider that water safe. So we included that in the definitions. And also we included definitions about the very small amounts of contaminants that are detected, things that are in the parts per million range, which is about 4 drops of water in a 55-gallon drum. We can also detect things in the parts per billion range, which is 1 drop of water in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And so we included those definitions in there as well to help those reading the report. We report on every contaminant that is detected, and we have, instead of 3 separate graphs for this or tables in the report, we consolidated it all into one place that people can see all the information at once. And that is the results of all the over 5,500 samples that we take every year. One of the things in the detected contaminants that we got from the customers was we put out that information, but we didn't really have a spot that said, look at all this information, but everything is still safe to drink. So we highlighted in our report with big green check marks that everything that was detected is under the MCLs and everything is safe to drink. We have done in 2018 some unregulated contaminant monitoring, and this is monitoring that is for, like it says, unregulated contaminants. These are things that are coming up that EPA requires us to take data on, that they go back, they crunch the numbers, and they decide if they want to create a maximum contaminant level or set a standard for those contaminants. So we've always participated in that. This is the 4th round of the unregulated contaminant monitoring, and we did that on some disinfection byproducts, and it's continuing into this year with things like cyanotoxins. We have to put in the report some educational language about arsenic, about sodium. There's a hotline that customers can call EPA, and this language is standard from EPA, and it's in everyone's consumer confidence report. We also get a chance to put some optional information. Like I said, some things that are optional, like we put in the awards that we got. We put in source water protection to get involved. We put in some process schematics that aren't necessarily needed but help the customers out. We also talk about our voluntary lead testing program in the optional information. For our voluntary lead testing program, we report the results that are done by any customer can call in, and we will deliver a container to them, and they will fill it up, and we'll go and test it for lead and copper and provide those results to them. But we also provide the results, a summary of the results in the report. We had 41 customers take us up on this. None of the lead sampling from the compliance samples or from the customer requested samples was over the action level of 15 parts per billion that is established by EPA. And APS is also doing right now a voluntary lead testing, and we're coordinating with them to take samples in our distribution system near where they're sampling at various schools. So that's pretty much everything for this year's report, but looking forward to next year's report, we're working right now on our pharmaceutical and personal care product study, where we're looking at all kinds of things that aren't regulated, but we did this study in 2011 and presented the results to the board and to our customers, and we're revamping it to see if anything's new. And the results of this report are likely to be at least highlighted with a link to go elsewhere to read it in next year's CCR. So that is all I have on the consumer confidence report, our water quality report, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Thank you. Great job. We are now on OB 1911 operating plan, annual operating plan. Rick Shin.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Rick Sheen. I'm the Water Rights Program Manager for the Water Utility, and I will be providing you with an annual operating plan. But based on comments earlier, I know nothing's really going to be a surprise on how well the water situation is this year. The AOP is presented each year, as Ms. Hubbard actually said, to satisfy conditions of our biological opinion that was issued by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in 2004. That was for our drinking water project. Other Endangered Species Act related activities that we do is provide funding for an aquatic conservation facility at the biopark. We participate in the Middle Rio Grande Endangered Species Collaborative Program. We participate with staff going out and participating in fish monitoring and habitat surveys. We contribute to the research and increasing understandings of the species through our work and the work with our contractors. And I would like to note that we learned last week from the Fish and Wildlife Service that the lease agreement that this board approved last year is touted as being sort of helpful not only keeping the Middle Rio Grande wet through the service area, but also for saving half of the minnows that they found alive last year during last year's 2018 dry season. That's something we should be proud of. Something you may or may not be aware of, we do have constraints on when we can divert. You're looking at a screenshot of the daily meter readings and flow data that is available to our customers on the website. I've highlighted two of the gauges. Those are locations just north and upstream of our diversion at Alameda, and then another meter located at Central Avenue, where Route 66 goes across the river. We're not able to divert if the flows of native flows, that is Rio Grande water, is below 195 cubic feet per second, or CFS, and that's at Alameda. We also can't divert water from the river if the native flows are below 122 CFS at Central Gauge. Given the conditions of this year, what you're seeing in the river now is almost 5,000 CFS, and we don't actually, the rest of the year should be pretty good as well. I'd like to remind you that we have lots of coordination with water managers here in the Middle Rio Grande. Last year in particular, we had up to 3 conference calls per week to discuss different agencies' releases and diversions of water. We actually prepare each season with a federal and state agency meeting where we talk about the modeling projections to see how much water is going to be in the system in the year, and that helps each of the water management agencies develop their annual operating plans. We also coordinate whether or not there are going to be flood operations anticipated for the year. Currently, we're in what's called a flood operation. You probably noticed a lot of water in the river, but at this point in time, we cannot release any San Juan Chama water. However, in anticipation of it and because of this coordination, we released water before April 29th, and have plenty of water down in Elephant Butte to sort of transfer the accounting. So we're able to divert water and account for it on a daily basis from previously released water. As you probably already know from the press, and what we can see in the river is that we have a well over average spring runoff flows this year, and we expect a robust monsoon this summer. Flows at Central Gauge are projected to get around 300 CFS. That's significant due to the restrictions we have. They must be above 122. We may be able to get and probably get our full diversion this year from the surface water. We're expecting to at least serve 70% of our demand with surface water. And this year's natural flows should be sufficient for minnow spawning. Excuse me, last year we had to actually supplement flows a little bit and adjust our operations of our diversion dam to enhance minnow spawning, we called it a jiggle last year. And just to give you, because a lot has been made about the difference between last year and this year, this is a table of different river gauges along the Rio Grande and within the Chama River system. The percentages you see are compared to what is an average flow. In 2018, those are actually the observed average flows. So the Rio Grande del Norte says 50%, so it got about half of its normal average of its average flow. Where 2019, our projections for this year, these are rather high, so the same gauge that got 50% of its normal flow can get close to 150% this year. Finally, to our projected water monthly diversions for this water year. This is a table showing our demand. Please note that on the y-axis that has acre feet per month that we plan to deliver to our customers and ratepayers, and the black line shows you how much that demand is each of the months. The bars underneath the black line show you how the demand's going to be met with the different water in our portfolio. The blue bar shows you how much of that water is going to be surface water. The green bar shows you how much would be groundwater for that month. And the other two bands are non-potable system services. Starting in November and through March, we're going to try to put in up to 5,000 acre feet in the ground with our new large-scale aquifer storage and recovery project. Those bars are showing up above demand because that is actually water that's going to be stored this year and maybe used in a later year when we need it the most. And with that, thank you, and if you have any questions, I'm open.
Are there any questions? No? Well, great. Thank you. Appreciate it. So with that, we will adjourn. Thank you, everyone, for being here.